Spot 105.1. My friend and one of my favorite interviews last year was with my friend Shaka Senghor in the building
that
today.
means a lot. I feel the same way.
Do you really?
Yeah, seriously, yeah. Definitely one of my favorite. Like the most genuine, real, and heartfelt.
Thank you, man. So if you don't know the history, you should watch our last interview.
Yes,
because we
sure.
really broke down Shaka's background. Well, let me just say, Shaka is a justice reform activist.
Yeah.
Is that the official
that's cool,
activist? Best-selling author of Righting My Wrongs. Now television producer.
I know, right?
Is that the title?
Yeah, consulting producer on Release that I'm super excited about.
But the last time he was here, we really told your story. We really talked about how you even got to this point.
Yeah.
Spending 25 years in prison.
19.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. 19. So I didn't want to add on. Nobody wants to add on. Nobody wants to add on. 19 years in prison, getting out, writing this book, really telling the story, really putting eyeballs on just what's wrong with the system and getting on the radar of Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, which was just an incredible experience of I look at it as an experience of thinking into existence the things that you want in your life. And I knew when I started working toward turning my life around, I started writing, that I wanted to have that conversation. And to have it come full circle was just an incredible experience.
So take me back just a little bit till we get to here, so we can see how amazing this moment is, right? Yeah. So just to give you a little backstory, so Shaka was writing in prison as well, right?
Yeah.
In prison, you started writing, developing the talent, the gift. Came out, was hustling books out the back of a car.
Out the trunk with it,
Out the truck, like he was moving books out here in the street.
Yeah, I mean, and it was one of those things where I knew coming home from prison that job opportunity was going to be very slim, and I realized I had the skill set while I was in prison. I started writing, taking it serious while I was in solitary confinement, and when I was writing, I would start writing down what did I want my goals to be, and I personally believe that you have to think into existence the things you want in your life, and I just started writing it down. I was like, one day Oprah Winfrey's going to read one of my books.
You didn't write that. I didn't know that.
I seriously wrote that down. I was like, one day I want to be a New York Times bestselling author. And when I would share that with people, they would be like, well, that's kind of ambitious. And I just would explain to them that the universe is abundant. And I believe it bestows upon you abundance when you open up your heart and mind to receive it. And so that's how I live my life.
So you wrote that down.
I wrote it down.
You come out, you're hustling books out the back of the car. Yep. Somehow the book makes its way to the home of one Oprah Winfrey. It sits around her home for like a year, right?
Yeah, literally. She said she moved it all around her house, and this was like, because the original cover was a little gritty. Yeah. It was me, standing on
self-published.
Self-published.
Yeah.
And that's one of the proudest things. So the proudest thing for me is that she actually read the self-published version and was inspired by that, which is just like a testament to the quality of writing and storytelling and, the compelling narrative that I was able to create.
There was no pretty cover.
No
gloss,
no professional editor.
Yeah.
The mother of my son, she edited the book, and we just put it out there, and we got out and hustled and grind and, just sold out the trunk and wherever we could.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Incredible.
And then so it got to her house. Somebody, a producer or somebody found it first, sent it to her.
A producer who's now a really good friend of mine named Andrea, she ended up giving it to Oprah after she read it. And she just moved it all around her house. And one day she was like, I'm going to just crack this book open and see what's happening. She said she was about 60 pages in when she was like, I want to interview this guy.
Changes your life.
Surreal. It was so surreal.
And the interview was phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you.
Oprah even said it was one of her favorite conversations ever in her life.
Yeah,
which, by the way, could you imagine the conversation, the list of conversations that Oprah has had in her life?
I mean, you're talking about Nelson Mandela, Maya Angelou, President Obama, Beyonce, Jay-Z, New York's own. So yeah, that was just super humbling to have that.
I was gonna say, what does that feel? Is that weird?
It was wild. And here's the thing that was really interesting. About a year prior to that, every year at the beginning of the year, I write down what I want to happen in my life. And I had wrote down everything that I accomplished, and I was like, the only thing I hadn't done was had that interview with Oprah. And literally the following year it happened. So I believe in being intentional about what you want in your life.
You should write down the lottery numbers for me today before you leave.
I got you.
If you want to do that for me, maybe that could work out good. So then you do the interview. It's incredible. Oprah says it's one of her favorite conversations, and then you build a relationship, right? She keeps in touch with you.
Yeah, and it was so crazy because I'm like, in my humility, I'm just like, I've done this incredible interview. I'll ride off and finish doing my work in the world. But she reached out to me, and it was literally just like we started building a relationship and a friendship, and I have so much respect for her.
Amazing story. Really just an amazing story. One of the things, too, and I've kind of like lightly said because Shaka and I have become friends, and I've shared this with you about Oprah is like I write in my book, I call her the almighty Oprah, right? Because to me, as a person in this field, she was everything to me. And the couple of times where I was like either not angry, but like, come on, Oprah, was when I felt like she wasn't really connecting with hip hop, with the streets, where she kind of just was like auntie about it. You know what I'm saying? When she wasn't, and I felt that disconnect from her. It bothered me as somebody has so much respect for her. But I feel like that conversation that she had with you shifted something for her.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot in life. Sometimes you have to have kind of an on-ramp. Like, what is the on-ramp to issues that you care about?
Yeah.
And may just not know how to connect to, And so when her and I were talking, we just kind of talked about, problem solving. I was explaining to her when I was in prison, when I started turning my life around, like I had to figure out a new way to resolve conflict that didn't include violence. And what I did is I started being able to see the little boy in every guy I got into a conflict with or a potential conflict.
While you're inside?
While I was inside. And what I realized is that if I can see the child in them first, then it made me more empathetic and compassionate. And I think her and I having that shared value really opened her eyes to like, let me look at these guys in a different light, and it's a super humbling experience to know that not only that she valued what our interaction, but that she trusts, my instinct when it comes to this space and know that the work that I do is really about that type of empathy and compassion. So.
Amazing. And so now you're doing this project with OWN.
Yes, super excited.
What is your role? What do you have to do? What do you do?
So I'm the consulting producer on Release.
He's a producer now. Add that to the list,
yeah, gotta
to the
add
resume.
That to the resume.
It's amazing.
And when they reached out to me, the OWN team reached out to me. I've got an opportunity to work with John Sinclair over there. Incredible, gifted, just humble person, and Dara, and we just really sat down and was like, Oprah really wants you to work with her on this project because we want to make sure we get this right. We're delicately dealing with, the humanness of people who are incarcerated, and we want to make sure that we're getting the stories out the right way and connecting. And then we got an opportunity to work with Kiera, who's an amazing talent. She was the showrunner and executive producer as well. And it was just humbling to watch these men and this one woman's story just unfold as they came home to their families.
What it is so it's called Released, and it's the story of six people who were incarcerated, and it shows them from release day, right?
Yeah,
or
so
before?
From their release day, coming out the first 90 days of their release. And one of the things that we really wanted to focus on was that part of their story. We didn't want to focus on what happened in prison, what they went to prison for, even though some of those things, do emerge.
Right.
But we really wanted to focus on the family dynamic, the community dynamic. How do you, help welcome men and women back to society? And more importantly, how do we humanize this issue? And there's nothing greater than to be able to see somebody reconnected with their family. And these are men and women who have been gone away for a long time. One, I think the longest was 26 years. And I think the shortest time is like maybe 6 years or so.
Yeah, I saw clips of it. I saw a piece of it today. So I saw the first man's story. He was away for a long 19 years,
19
I think.
19 years, yeah.
For like selling clothes and like a scuffle, like because it was his third offense. He was a victim of that law. So 19 years. He comes out 48 years old. Yeah. He's not the same person he is when he goes inside.
Not at all.
And then to see his family welcoming him and him getting his first, I don't know, it just crept up in my heart immediately. I was like, I was watching it here, and then I was like, I can't watch this here. I gotta watch this. I gotta watch this when I go home because it's heavy. It's like
definitely
heavy.
It's so the first guy that you're talking about is Kevin, and Kevin spent 19 years in prison for literally stealing $150 worth of children's clothes, and it was associated with his addiction, and when you really think about that, like 20 years for petty theft, that completely disrupted this man's family, his life, when in reality, we could have been getting him some type of substance abuse treatment as opposed to, punitively dealing with it. And so, a lot of that comes through, and I think that when people watch it, they'll have a different understanding of how dysfunctional our prison system is, and largely because we just haven't been able to humanize people. We just attach, stats
Criminal.
and data and criminal, and we just forget that these are human beings whose lives are completely devastated. That $150 from a retail store, that's a tax write-off at a minimum, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But that literally cost this man 20 years of his life.
And it's not just his life. It's his kid's life. It's his family's life. It's, it's
Exactly. And I mean, when you think about, this is a father. This is somebody's son. He has two children who literally grew up with their father being gone, and now he's reuniting, and it's not an easy reunification process.
Yeah. So what is the hope when you put out this show? Just to let people humanize it?
Yeah, the hope for us is that people will really see the humanity in our incarcerated brothers and sisters. I think it's so important, and one of the things that's really been touching to me in this experience is that after people have viewed the screening, I have so many people come up to me and say, I have an uncle that's incarcerated. I have a brother, I have an aunt, I have a mother, and I don't know how to connect with them because I'm ashamed. And so the more I thought about that, I was like, wow, this is deep, that this deep level of shame allows us to not address the issue, and so it continues to grow, and the population continues to grow. And now we're offering up this opportunity for people to really connect from the most human perspective, which is why we really wanted to focus on what is life after, and it's just amazing to see these families connect. You can see the void that's left when a parent is taken out of a family, and what that does to community. I mean, we know what's happening with our communities throughout the country, and it's largely because so many of our men and women have been disappeared due to the punitive nature of the criminal justice system.
It's infuriating.
Unbelievable.
Did you watch the Kalief Browder story?
I did, and that story just,
that must have been tough for you specifically too, to watch somebody who's
so
spent a lot of
hard.
time.
This young life with so much potential. Falsely accused, abused while he was in, solitary confinement. Like, that piece resonated. I ended up writing a letter to Kalief, like, dear Kalief, here's what I would have said to you. And it was, I did 7 years in solitary confinement, and I know the torturous nature of that environment and the heaviness that he came out with, that he had to try to cope with on his own, So when I found out that Jay-Z was doing that documentary, like, I was so excited to hear that, because people need to know these stories, and they need to know that this is happening to our kids, and had Kalief been, Corby from the suburbs, that wouldn't have happened, and so I think it's important for us to really highlight how these things are really impacting our communities.
Yeah. Did you say Corby?
Yeah. I was trying to think of another
name. The go-to white kid name?
I just had to, I had to come up with something, right?
No, but you're so true. It's so, and it's funny because when that show came out, I remember thinking, I know this story. I've read this story. I've seen it, but it's different when it's brought to, like, television or film, where you see the family and you see the mother, and you see, it really just hits you in a different way. And so, I could see that also happening with this show that you guys are doing, where you get to see the family.
Yeah, and that's the power of it. I mean, these families are so resilient. The women in the family are just unbelievably courageous, and it's typically the case in our communities with so many males who have been taken away and hauled off to prison, and the women are left to hold everything together and hold it down. And the way that these women show up, the daughters, the wives, and even grandmothers, just like, it's one story I can't wait. And this is an 8-part docu-series, so it's not just one night. It'll be 8 weeks of it. And there's this
on OWN.
On OWN.
Starts on when?
Starts this Saturday, September the 30th, 10 p.m.
Got it.
East and West Coast. And so, you see this beautiful grandmother that's just been waiting on her baby to come home. And she leaves his room intact. And it's literally like watching somebody go into a time capsule. It is unbelievably touching and just stirs your soul in a real way. And I think that the power of that moment is one of the things where you realize what 20 years look like. You know, what does it look like when you send somebody away for that long, and then they come back to a different society, you know?
I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's deep.
Yeah, I'm so glad you guys are doing this.
Yeah.
So it's 8 weeks.
8 weeks, 8-part docu-series.
I know you do a lot. You do a lot of work. You are a voice for these issues. What is the thing that, like, what is the main thing we're fighting to change out the gate? Like if we could make 2 changes, what would that be?
I think if we can make 2 changes, like me personally, I would focus on decriminalizing mental illness. The way that men and women who have mental illness suffer in prison is unimaginable, and it's really a shame. To me, I think it's one of America's greatest shames is that what we do to people who have mental illness inside prison. And the other thing is that, you introduce real comprehensive substance abuse treatment for people who are dealing with addiction, as opposed to just punishing them because they are dealing with this disease that, leads them down this particular path. And so those are things that are really fixable, really working on reentry initiatives that actually are reflective of the world that we live in. When I walked out of prison, they had me going to this very anemic reentry program with all this old, outdated information. And so I came home. It was just like, you've been gone for 20 years. Now here, go out and figure out the world. And it's like coming out as a newborn and navigating a whole new language and technology and all the fancy things that, we just take for granted in our day-to-day lives. So those are areas I would really focus on. I think it would make a major difference in the world.
How long have you been home?
I've been home 7 years now.
How do you feel adjusted?
There's areas in my life where I'm still adjusting. I discover new things about me as a man now. Like, when I came home, I thought I was an adult, and I realized that I had like this arrested development, and I had this moment where when I first got out, my first car was like a 96 Caprice Classic, straight hood mobile.
Right. You thought it was still popping? You thought that was still popping?
The crazy thing is it came out after I was locked up, but,
so that was the new joint.
And then when I got home, it was the old school joint, right? But I literally went and put some music in, and then one day I'm at a street light, and a young guy pulls up in the same kind of car. In Detroit, we love our old school cars, and we like almost playing the same music, and I'm like, this guy got to be like 18 or 19, and I'm like, I'm almost 40. What am I doing, And that's when it hit me. Like, at first I laughed, and then I got sad, and I was like, there's areas in my life where I really haven't grown up and matured. And I'm not opposed to loud music. I still listen to loud music.
Yeah, by the way, I was never locked up. I'm in my 40s,
right.
and I still listen to loud music.
But it was just the combination of things that really just hit me. And so, you'll see that manifesting in these guys as they're coming home and they're trying to navigate life. And the woman in the show, Kay, who her storyline is just so deep, and just to connect, the way that you'll connect with her immediately is like, hey, that's my auntie, or that's my sister, and that's my friend. So you have these real human stories, and that's the power of it,
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
How many are you getting? Like, I don't know. I'm obsessed with Oprah. So when you do like this big thing and you have this project with Oprah, do you get to meet? I'm sure like you've met some incredible people in this process, and are they like now as enlightened as she is? And do you feel like you're being effective to those type of people, who can affect change? You know what
definitely.
I'm saying?
I've been very fortunate in my work, obviously to be able to work with Oprah, but also have done a lot of work with Van Jones.
Love Van.
Dream Corps and Jessica Jackson at Cut 50 over there. And I've met some incredible people who really want to change the system. And the thing is just figuring out how to do it. And so with Van, what I love about Van is really smart about these things. And he realized legislation without humanization, we couldn't get the job done. And so being able to work alongside him and just meet so many courageous people, Russell Simmons always, shout him out, the godfather of hip hop, and how he's used this platform to allow us to tell these stories and connect with people. And it's just incredible. I'm blessed to work with some people who really care about things like this. I
feel a little hopeful. Do you feel hopeful?
I do. Yeah. It's the work that I've been able to do in terms of from a bipartisan perspective. It was, and I'm not like a super political guy. I'm just an everyday human guy, but I also realize that policy is how you change things. And, I have been inspired by people. When President Obama was in office, the work that we were able to do at the White House, and despite what's going on in the current administration, we still have people working from a bipartisan standpoint on this issue in particular. And I was shocked to see that the conservatives were really stepping up to the plate and saying, we need to reduce the prison population. Now, what their motives were for that,
right.
you never really know. But at the end of the day, when it's your friends that are incarcerated, you don't really care who signs the bill to let them out. We just want to bring our people home.
And what about people inside? Are you getting a lot of reaction from people who are like hearing you and hearing your message? And
definitely.
Because I got to imagine that you bring people hope.
Yeah, the brothers inside, they keep me hopeful. They write me some of the most beautiful letters about how proud they are. Men I've served time with, and even when I go inside prison systems outside of where I did time at, when I go in there, like the level of respect that the men inside show me. It's so humbling, and I get it, because I know, like, when I read Malcolm X's autobiography, like, I revered that book, and I really put him on a pedestal as a person who demonstrated what it takes to turn your life around. And so to have that type of response, and I'm not saying like a Malcolm X response, but to have the type of response where
lives.
People are really saying, I'm hopeful, and I'm really looking forward to doing something when I get out of prison that adds value to the community. Like that, to me, that's like one of the greatest parts of my legacy. So I feel honored by that,
And moving forward?
Moving forward, so much happening right now.
Come on, Shaka, what we doing out here?
How
gotta change the world.
Change the world. But I mean, like right now, I'm really in this space, this creative space where I believe that, you create highly entertaining content with deep social impact. You can move the needle on things. I think that's the magic of hip hop culture. Me and you had this, this conversation all the time about, me being such a big fan of hip hop, because it's empowered us in ways that I think sometimes we take for granted.
Yes.
But it really liberated voices in communities that didn't have a voice. And so I always believe that art has the ability to change culture. And once you can shift culture, you can produce different outcomes. And I mean, like with Release, this wasn't like an artistic interpretation of, people's lives. This is their real lives,
right.
Yet we're using an artistic platform to share these real lives. And I just think that's the power of it all. And, one of the conversations Oprah and I had during Queen Sugar's first premiere, when she was introducing me to Kofi, who plays Ralph Angel in Queen Sugar. And part of that character is based on my story.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah,
it's
and
crazy.
So when she introduced us, she was like, this is how you do it. This is how you use art as a change agent. And, that's the power of intention that she believes in. She lives her life in that manner. And so, just moving forward, I'm looking forward to collaborating with her again on something magical. We're really looking forward to this landing really well with people, and the conversations we're excited about having online. And I'm engaged in this. It's not just pushing the show, but I really want to connect with people and figure out ways that we can really continue to have this conversation.
Yeah, I think after people see it too, there's going to be so many more conversations to have,
Yeah.
right? About like what it takes to help not just them, but everybody else that's in that position that they're in.
Yeah, definitely. And what I really excited about is just people reconnecting with their families, freeing themselves of the shame, that comes with having a loved one locked up. Because and it's people from all walks of life. Like I meet people from every space you can think of, and sometimes they'll pull me to the side and whisper, "I got a loved one locked up." Or my stepson or my daughter is dealing with addiction, especially with opioid crisis right now. So there's just so many people who are hurting in this space, and we just haven't created a safe space for people to have these conversations.
By the way, if you're just joining us, Saturday it premieres, right?
Saturday, September 30th, 10 p.m.
Released. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Are you going to do another book?
I am.
Good.
Yes.
By the way, if you haven't read his book, I highly recommend it.
Thank you so much.
It is a New York Times bestseller, and rightfully so. And you're going to do another one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So I just met with my publishers and started talking about ideas I have. And basically the next book will be about the life lessons I learned along my journey inside prison and how those showed up in my life on the outside. So super excited about that. Looking to get a break at some point and to get started writing on that. And while we're on the subject of book, are you going to write another book?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Gotta turn the tables.
I need help, Shaka.
I got you.
I have some thoughts. I'm just waiting for the thoughts to overflow so that then I have a reason to, you know what I mean? Because writing a book it ain't a light thing. It ain't like a blog post.
No, especially when you got a lot going on.
No disrespect, honey. No disrespect. I'm just saying it is a process.
It is. It truly is. And you got to carve out the space to be honest to your writer's voice. And so, but I just think that your voice is such a tremendous voice. And
thank you.
Even in this space, like I'm deeply appreciative that we're able to have these real conversations and. The way you and I connected was like the craziest thing ever.
The craziest story. We talked about it in the last interview, but if you should go watch that.
Watch that old interview and you'll see how we met. But, ever since then, it's been 100. And I appreciate it. And the way you picked up the mantle for this issue, like that really means a lot. Because your voice is so powerful in this space.
Thank you, man. Thank you for everything you've taught me so far. I really do appreciate that, too. We met, just to tell you, if you haven't seen the interview, we met at the White House at an event for criminal justice reform, and I was a baby to this issue. I mean, I knew of the problems. I knew of people. I knew of, I didn't know what was happening in terms of reform and what was possible and I didn't know. And so that was the beginning for me, and we shared that day together. And then we were like there, we didn't know each other. We were in line and we just started talking.
We'll be specific. You was in line to meet the president.
I was in line to meet the president, to take a photo. I was in line to take I had just seen Van Jones. Van Jones had just said this amazing story about his friend who was this activist, and they won't let him in the building because he's he was incarcerated, and Van telling the story, he got so choked up. And so then I'm in line to meet the president after, and Shaka's in the hallway area. And
President Obama, to be specific. Let's be clear about
please. I would not wait there. I wouldn't wait. Please. Anyway, so we're standing in the hallway, and we just started talking, and then he asked me, what's been the best part of the day so far? And I was like, the best day is Van told me the story about this guy named Shaka. And it was you, and you were right there. We've been friends and connected ever since. But I've really learned a lot from both you and Van, and in learning it makes me a lot of things make me angry. But then it also inspires me to want to talk to people like you even more. And
that's the part of it. Like Van, in that moment, Van humanized me as a person. I wasn't a statistic or a number.
Right.
And it touched your heart, and it opened up your heart space, and here we are. And so I think that's what release will do for people. Like, it's really going to open up the conversation, open up hearts, and people are really going to see the humanity of this story. And it's, in that points it can be really sad, and sometimes it's funny and enlightening, and it's just such an important part of the conversation, and I think it's going to move the needle that much more.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Congratulations, Shaka Senghor, activist, best-selling author, television producer.
Yeah.
Release on OWN. Everybody check it out. Must see.
Yeah. Thanks so much, y'all.
Thank you, baby.